Hey, what's up guys? Kevin here from Canadian Card Pickers, and today I want to talk to you guys about some common printing errors that you might find with your sports trading cards. This does apply to Magic, Pokemon, and more trading card games as opposed to just trading cards. But a lot of this is going to be kind of more focused on baseball, and I think that kind of expands a bit out to other sports cards as well. Whereas Magic and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, they have a little different take on things compared to sports cards. So yeah, today we're going to talk about common printing errors. The first thing I want to do is I want to talk about what are printing errors. Well, printing errors are anything that happens during the printing and production process, not just printing, but packaging errors, things like that. And basically they're anything that makes it so it's not an accurate example of what the card is supposed to be. So I don't want to talk too much now about different types because I want to expand on those later. But yeah, there's a handful. Some are unique to different types of printing processes. So you might not see something with a Topps card that you might see with a Wizards of the Coast card or a Pokemon card. So different types of printing errors. Jumping into it, one of the most common that you'll see around, but it was much more common back in the 70s and the 80s compared to now, is miscut cards. So as you can see on the left with the Austin and Rose cards, they were printed as they were getting cut on the sheet, because when they print cards, they just print a big roll, a big sheet of cardstock, and then they cut it into the individual cards. It saves time, and that way they don't have to do a specific player or that kind of thing. So in this case, on Austins and Roses, you can see that they were a little late on the cut. So it cut into their team names, for instance, Cardinals on the left, Cincinnati Reds on the right, and they cut it late. So there's probably a whole bunch in this print, like this one sheet, probably they were all miscuts. Because, it goes down to the Brewers and the Mets, and they're cutting that probably along the vertical, right? So you'd probably have a whole row that is experiencing this issue. Same thing goes for Roger Maris on the right-hand side. You can see that in this case, instead of it being, on the horizontal, it was on the vertical where they had a bad cut. And you can see that it's showing the other frame for the other card on the left-hand side and cuts into his frame on the right. The thing about miscut cards is a lot of people do not classify it a miscut unless it contains another card. So in both cases of these, they are showing another card other than their designated card. So the severity of the miscut determines if it actually is a miscut. In other cases, they just consider it off-center. And that's an alignment issue as opposed to a cutting issue. So for instance, on Roger Maris's, if he had you couldn't see the card on the left-hand side, then it would just be off-center. But in this case, in both of these, they are considered miscut. The one other thing to note, especially if you're trying to, get valuable miscuts or you think it's valuable, cards like this don't grade well. Because they're going to grade based on the intended purpose of the card. How accurate is it to what it should be? And in this case, they're extremely inaccurate. So the grading on these is going to be fairly low because of how bad they are. I don't know if PSA does anything and takes that into account and can say like, oh, the physical quality is really good, but the printing quality is bad. So like, I don't know if there's something there, but keep that in mind if you have a pristine miscut card and you think it's going to get graded very high. Next up, we have missing front and back. So this is part of the printing process. Basically, the card will have a front or a back and it won't have the other side. This happens when two sheets during the production process get stuck together, which isn't as uncommon as you'd expect. And what happens is when they'll lay down the front, and then when they go to lay down the back, it's going onto the other sheet. So both sheets are going to be missing whatever's stuck together, right? So the front and the back for them. And then during the cutting process, they get separated. And now you've got a whole slew of cards where there's no front or back, depending on whether it was the top or the bottom sheet. Now, while these are interesting, they're not really notable. There's not any really major cards that have a missing front or back that are worth a lot. Especially too, because Topps ended up producing these intentionally, which means, if you want a specific type of card, like, it is possible to potentially get it without a back. So really, because it's available as something that you can just obtain naturally, it's an error, but it's not notable. It's not special. So really, missing front and back is quirky, but it's not really worth anything. Cool for your collection, not for most collectors. Next up, similar to the last one, but in this case, it is the wrong back. So this is where two players have their front and back mismatched. And this is something that can happen really easy if sheets get mixed up during the printing process. And often these are miscut, and they're going to vary set to set what you might find. But yeah, for example, you've got the image on the screen. We've got Lou Brock for the Cubs, and during the printing process, instead of his bio and his stats, they put Jerry Adair's from the Orioles. So very different, not even the same player. These ones are interesting and quirky. Whether or not they have value or not is tough to say. There are some notable cards that have, this type of situation, which I'll talk about a little later. But, it's kind of interesting. You've got two players kind of in history in one card. Next up, this is a printing-based error, and this is missing foils. So the two cards that we have, on the left-hand side, the way the card was designed, the foil actually was the name and name designation for the player, right? Like, without the foil, you don't see the name or any of the little additional details. On the right-hand side for Benintendi, from, I think this is the 2021 Series 1, he, it just doesn't have whatever foil is supposed to be over top of it. So it looks like just a base card. So this is one of the most common things you're going to see in the modern cards that come out compared to like miscuts on the old cards. And this basically happens when sheets get stuck together, which is a common theme we've seen from some of these misprints, or the card the sheet gets missed or skipped. And the really weird thing about these types of errors is they tend to come in batches. So you could theoretically get a hobby box or a retail box or whatever, and they could all be missing their foils. So it's neat, but also I feel like that would be pretty annoying as a collector. I don't know if there's any way to swap those cards out and get, a functional one, but basically it's, a very weird quirk. I don't think it's super common, but it's something that if you're going to run into an issue, this is most likely to be it, other than off-center printing. So yeah, just a weird one that can sometimes, if it hits you hard, it hits you hard. Next up, missing names and misspellings. So in this case, we have, I think it's Adam Lind of the Mariners, and this is the Gypsy Queen style card. I believe, I think it's the Ginter ones, but basically you can see they've got all the details. They just don't have his name. No Adam Lind there. So, if you know the Mariners and you know the player, and you'll know the name, but if you don't, you wouldn't be able to know who this is. Additionally, misspellings can happen too, and there's some notable misspellings that I'll talk about later. But yeah, just kind of a weird one. Everything else printed except the name. I'm not sure if that's an issue with the print design or the file, and they just forgot to put the name there, or if in the sequence of events they print different things at a time, and then maybe they finish off with a name. I'm not sure. So I talked about notable error cards that do have some value to them. So let's go into those. The first one, this is, I think, one of the most notable and decently valuable error cards, and this is from 1990. This is from Topps, and it's Frank Thomas's rookie card. And what happened is they accidentally didn't put his name on it. No Frank Thomas there. And this is before the days where rookie cards, like rookies had to be rookies. This is like actually like a prospect card. You can see number 1 draft pick in that. So I don't believe he's wearing a major league jersey in this. This is him in the minors, I think. So this is an interesting one. And the cool thing about this is if you guys collected the 2020 Series 1 Topps cards, there was a very special Luis Robert short print. I'm not sure, it might be a super short print. I'm not quite sure on where it sits in that, but they paid homage to this rookie card. And so it doesn't have his name. So if you have one of those, it is not an error. It is intentional, and it's a rare card, and it's worth a decent amount. So sleeve it up, put it in a top loader, get it graded, and put it aside, because that thing is worth something. Same goes for this one. There's, you'll see it a lot on eBay if you look up, Frank Thomas, or if you look up no name on front rookie card, he's pretty much the one that everyone talks about. But now we do have an intentional one with Luis Robert. The next one, this is a misspelling. So this is Piedmont Sherry McGee. But if you look at the card, McGee is supposed to be M-A-G-E-E, but they spelt it M-A-G-I-E. So this is a very old card. This is from about 110 years ago. And, they printed it for about 2 years. And so it's a really old style. You can see it's in that interesting vertical. I'm not sure if this one was sold with cigarettes like they used to be, but basically this one is a very notable and highly desired card just because of its age as well as that misspelling. Next up, this is a weird one. This is not a printing error per se. This is more a human error in the fact that neither Bill Ripken in 1989 for this Fleer baseball card, nor the photographer realized what was at the base of the bat stamped on or written on there. If you have a look, you'll be able to tell what it says. It's not exactly family friendly, but basically what happened is he just... he had to get his photo taken, so he's like, oh, okay, and he just grabbed a random bat that happened to have this nickname on it, and he posed. The photographer didn't notice that it had the swear on it. He didn't notice, and it made it into production. All through that process, no one noticed, no one realized, and it got out into the wild. And so this is just a really neat one because it's not a printing error, it's a human error, which I find a little more hilarious. And it's like a very attributable human error as well. Next up is the 1969 Mickey Mantle card, and this is a printing error in coloring. This was the last card they put out for Mickey Mantle, I believe. I think this was the last year that they put out him while he was actively playing. And the reason this one is weird is his last name, Mantle, was supposed to be colored in yellow, like the yellow of the Yankees, but in the misprint, it just came out white, like his normal name. So it was supposed to be in yellow, and they're like in future prints or whatever, they had it proper, but this is just a cool one because it's his last card and it has this notable error as well. So, keep an eye out for this. Mickey Mantle is always beloved. So again, value is going to come from being someone notable. Next up, this one's a cool one. I talked about wrong backs, like mismatched players. This is a super notable one because it was 2 players and their bios were swapped, as opposed to just one having the incorrect one on their back. So Johnny Sain and Joe Page, in this series, there was a possibility in 1952 Topps to get the back of the other player on the cards. So I just think it's kind of an interesting quirk that these 2 players, they're going to be connected for the rest of time through this. You can see that in their sequence, you got number 48 and number 49. So those just got swapped up, and just kind of an interesting quirk. It's one of the notable incorrect backs. And finally, one of the more recent notable cards. This one is again a human error thing. This isn't a printing error. The card has no issues with how it's printed. You can see everything looks fine. But I believe this probably was what triggered the MLB to implement their more rigid guidelines for when you can put a rookie card on a player. So this might have been like the first card after, where they mucked things up. But in 2006 Topps, Alex Gordon, had a contract with the Kansas City Royals. But the thing is, it's a rookie card for him. So that would have meant that he debuted. But the thing is, the people making the series thought, oh, this guy's so good, there's no way they're not going to debut him. They didn't debut him. So this card shouldn't have existed. He never made his debut. Therefore, it's, he didn't appear in that time period. And so they printed a card that shouldn't have been printed and shouldn't exist. It wasn't incorrect design or anything. It was just, they goofed up. So if you have this one, it's a really cool one, and it kind of comes at the start of MLB really dictating what can have rookie applied to it and that kind of thing. So in that way they weren't releasing rookie cards when the person didn't debut in the MLB or anything like that. So obviously the question, why a lot of you are probably watching this, what you're thinking of if you have an error card is, oh my God, is this valuable? Is this worth something? Like, should I sell this? And the thing is, unfortunately, error cards, at least in sports trading cards, errors are often looked down upon by collectors, right? People want pristine cards. When you get a card graded, they're not grading it on, what's it worth? They're grading it on how good quality is this? How close is this to the intended design and what it should be? Like, how perfect is this to what it was supposed to be? So an error obviously cuts from that because it's not meant to be misprinted or have an error in it. So you're not going to get a very high grading with something like an error card. You still can get high, gradings potentially, depending on the error card. Miscuts, missing fronts and backs, wrong backs, missing foil, things like that, those aren't going to be valuable because that's almost condition based. But things like missing names or the wrong backs as opposed to like a missing back, those ones can be graded high but also have a printing error. So those tend to be, I think, a little more valuable because they can be in high, like good condition, or misspelling names, for instance, like that McGee one. Those are going to have value to collectors because it's a printing error, but at the same time, it is in good condition. So really, the value of error cards are going to come down to the people that are looking for them. If someone wants to buy your card, it's what they're willing to pay. There's not really it's not like there's a Beckett high on, necessarily misprints, right? There can be, if they're notable ones, but for basic cards, anything newer, it's going to be based on the quality, right? And the thing too is error cards are going to be more valuable if it's a notable player, if it's a top rookie, if it is a all-star player from back in the day, or if it's just a notable player like way long ago, like the McGee one, 100 plus years. So really, error cards don't have value in and of themselves, but that might be different in games or in trading card games like Pokemon and Magic. Sometimes people really like those quirks. So really, it's going to depend on the collector. And, in summary, like, error cards are cool. They're neat. They have a funny story. They're quirky, but they're really not valuable in their own right. They're not, in most cases. Only notable cards tend to have value, but an error card that's just missing foil isn't going to be worth more than if it had the foil, most of the time. And really, most collectors, they're looking for a perfect card. They're looking for pristine. They are looking for accurate and perfect. They aren't looking for something that is incorrect, invalid, wrecked, anything like that, right? That's why we have grading systems. And, really, ultimately, error cards are cool for your own personal collection. Depending on the card, they might have value. But, if you get one, sleeve it up, put it in a top loader, who cares, right? If it's for your collection, it's what you make of it and what you think of it and what you value it at. So really, that's what it comes down to is, you know, do you think it's cool? Great, keep it in your collection. But that's it. That's what I wanted to talk about. There's obviously other types of printing errors you can get into, you know, and it's going to vary by production process, whether or not, you know, like how they're actually printing things. You know, sports cards are going to be different than Magic or Pokemon cards, which tend to be, you know, thinner, lighter, kind of more designed for play. But other than that, that's all I've got to say. You know, let me know in the comments what error cards you've received. Do you have any rare ones? Do you have anything that you just think is cool? Let us know if you can, you know, post a link to a photo or whatever. Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a like. Feel free to subscribe if you want more content like this, as well as card openings and a whole slew of other things. We appreciate your guys' support. Feel free to share this to your friends that are getting into collecting, especially if they're asking you questions and you're like, dude, I can't keep asking these. You need to Google it yourself. Feel free to give them this so they can learn about error cards and suggest that they subscribe. Thanks so much, you guys, for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video. Bye.